And joining us now to discuss is Michelle Schneider, Managing Partner at MarketGauge. Welcome to the show, Michelle. So taking a look at Bitcoin, slightly up today, but is Bitcoin undervalued or can it go lower?
Well, of course, anything can go lower. I mean, we're in a speculative market, and of course, volume is going to be key. But leading up to the B-word event yesterday, what was interesting about Bitcoin over the last several weeks was that the price went down in a very orderly, quiet type of way, which for Bitcoin is actually kind of unusual because we got used to such incredible volatility. So that once it really broke that 30,000 and tried to test just slightly under, it was met with a lot of buying. In fact, Binance recorded the biggest ever amount of buying to the tune of like 30,000 as far as Bitcoin that day. And then, of course, the B word helped get it back over 30. So, yeah, I would say that just on the base of the volatility and the amount of institutional interest and the whole idea of what happened, how institutions can embrace Bitcoin and the B word yesterday, it does definitely appear undervalued. And what's great is right now, if you're a technical trader, which we love to do, you have a really good point where you know you're wrong. And for something like Bitcoin, to know you're wrong within a $3,000 or $4,000 range is actually almost like knowing you're wrong in a dollar range in some of the other more smaller priced instruments.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the B word, which was yesterday's talk with Elon Musk and Jack Dorsey on Bitcoin. Do you think that is still having residual effects, or maybe Bitcoin is up today just because, the U.S. stocks and the overall markets are up?
Well, again, there can be a correlation, although we have seen the opposite where the markets are going up and Bitcoin's going down. Clearly, in the last rally up until Monday's big decline in the market, Bitcoin was continuing to go down. So I don't know if that relationship is necessarily right now making any kind of impact on the price. So I would say yes, the B word is definitely having an impact because people are just digesting what was said. And if you listen to some of the buzzwords that came out of it, particularly from Elon Musk, I'm not a seller, I don't dump, I pump, I haven't sold any of my coins. Of course, Kathy Wood and her incredible looking at it as a disruptor going forward. And I love Dorsey's comment about world peace, that he hopes it brings world peace, even equipped with the tie-dye shirt, for those of us old enough to remember what that means. Yeah, I think that it's still having a very positive impact here. And again, technically, 30,000 held. That's key.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned the stock markets. Are you in the camp that believes that Bitcoin is totally uncorrelated with the stock markets? And along those lines, when Bitcoin plunged below 3,000, other top performing stocks like Tesla also plunged. What do you make of that correlation?
Well, it's a really great question, Christina, because I have actually created something called the economic modern family, which really consists of the traditional instruments one would think that gauges the U.S. economy, like small caps and retail and transportation. And several years ago, even before all of this, I added crypto as part of the character. And we have really been trying to find exactly how crypto relates not just to the overall market, but to the U.S. economy. And I think that relationship is still relatively unclear, but what I do know for sure is that there is a relationship. I couldn't give you a definition of that right now because I think it's still relatively premature compared to something like, the Dow Jones Industrial Transportation Index, which goes back a couple of hundred years almost. So, yeah, I think that this is definitely going to have an impact on the economy and not just the coin itself, but obviously the technology, the Ethereum technology, blockchain technology, all of this is going to have an impact. And I think that's kind of what Jack Dorsey was trying to say, is that it could be very cohesive in terms of how people look at currency and technology away from the government. To
right.
Pretty much what Musk had said.
Some people, Michelle, think that Bitcoin operates on its own. It's its own asset class, and that's the reason why to invest into it to hedge your risk. But JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon has called Bitcoin a fraud, which has evolved over time. Now he's saying it's not his cup of tea and that he's not a supporter. But what's interesting is that now JPM is the first major bank to allow their retail wealth management clients invest in GBTC. Would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I try not to take too seriously the words of most people who have a lot to gain or lose as a result of what they say. And Jamie Dimon has also been talking about retiring in general, so maybe he wants this to be his swan song, that he's going to turn out to be right. I don't know. All I know is this. Whatever he says, what you just said is definitely more relevant in that they're allowing their high net worth clients to buy it. And it's a trend that's happening in some banks. If you take a look at Silvergate, for example, Silvergate just reported second quarter earnings, and they had a $4.3 billion deposit recently tied to crypto, which means that they don't make money on the price of crypto necessarily, although there's a relation. They make money on the volume of the transaction, and they just recorded this huge transaction on top of what we just talked about with Binance. So fraud or not, I see more and more legitimacy every single day as other things come out, whether it's something like Barclay in sports saying that he's buying Bitcoin, or it's PayPal increasing its exposure, or Michael Saylor or whatever. I think the biggest thing is going to be the mining and the environmental concern that Elon Musk brought up, because to me, if they can resolve that, I think that would really send this all flying. And he mentioned nuclear energy. That'll be interesting to see what happens going forward with that.
Yeah, it's continuing to develop. All right, Michelle, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
All right, that was Michelle Schneider, managing partner at Market Gauge. Coming up,